Have you ever wondered why, even having access to everything you've always dreamed of, you still feel empty inside? Why you spend hours on your phone without realizing it, even knowing it's bad for you? Now imagine discovering that your freedom is a carefully constructed illusion, that every click, every purchase, every moment of pleasure was planned by someone to keep you exactly where you are. Sounds like a conspiracy theory? I thought so too, until I understood how our golden prison works. Get ready for a journey that will completely change how you see the world around you. More importantly, you'll discover how to break free. This feeling of emptiness you experience is the first sign that something much bigger is happening to you. We live in an era where we have more entertainment, more food options, more forms of pleasure than any previous generation. Our grandparents didn't have access to 1,000 movies in the palm of their hand, couldn't order food from anywhere in the world with a click, didn't have infinite games to pass the time. So why, with so much pleasure available, do we feel so lost? The emptiness you feel has a name. It's the dopamine hangover. Your brain was designed to feel pleasure when it achieves something important for your survival. When our ancestors found food after days of hunger, when they discovered clean water in the desert, when they found shelter during a storm, in these moments, their brain released dopamine as a reward. It was a perfect system that kept us alive and motivated to seek what we needed. But today, this ancestral system has been completely hacked. Every notification that lights up your screen, every like that appears on your photos, every new purchase you make online triggers the same chemical our ancestors felt when securing their survival. The problem is that this artificial pleasure never truly satisfies. It mimics the feeling of achievement without you actually having achieved anything. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. And this is exactly what's happening with your life. Every endless scroll, every episode you watch automatically, every impulse purchase promises to complete you, but only increases the internal hole. You're not broken. You don't have weak willpower. You're being manipulated by systems created specifically to keep you in this state of constant hunger. Think about how the pleasures of previous generations were. Your grandfather might have played guitar at the end of the day. Your grandmother might have spent hours cooking a special recipe. They walked to neighbors' houses to chat. They read entire books from beginning to end. They built things with their own hands. These pleasures required time, effort, and real presence. But in return, they offered lasting satisfaction and genuine growth. Compare that to your current pleasures. How many of them require you to actually be present? How many leave you more capable and stronger afterward? How many create memories you'll fondly remember in 10 years? Most of your pleasure moments are passively consumed, forgotten within minutes, and leave you wanting more without ever really satisfying you. But before understanding how to escape this trap, we need to discover how we got here. And this story begins well before smartphones existed. The answer to your emptiness began to be written in 1932, when a British writer named Aldous Huxley had a frighteningly accurate vision of the future. Huxley wasn't just anyone. He grew up in a family of renowned scientists, was the grandson of one of history's greatest biologists, and had access to the most influential intellectual circles of his time. This gave him a unique perspective on how humans function and how they can be controlled. Huxley lived in an era of radical transformations. He saw World War I devastate Europe, witnessed the emergence of mass production, observed how war propaganda could manipulate entire populations. He was surrounded by thinkers who studied psychology, sociology, and the first experiments with behavioral control. All this context prepared him to see something others couldn't yet see. During the rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe, while Hitler was rising to power in Germany and Stalin was consolidating his control in the Soviet Union, Huxley perceived something no one else was seeing. While everyone feared control through brute force, explicit violence, and military repression, he imagined something far more efficient: control through pleasure. In his book Brave New World, he created a society where nobody needed to be forced to obey. There were no guards on the streets, no overcrowded prisons, no public executions to intimidate the population. People simply didn't want to rebel because they were too happy being slaves. They had constant pleasure, infinite entertainment, immediate satisfaction of all desires, and in return, they completely abdicated their freedom and autonomy. Huxley's genius was understanding that pleasure can be a stronger chain than any physical shackle. When you're having fun, you don't think about escaping. When you're satisfied, you don't question the system that keeps you satisfied. And this is exactly what he predicted for our future. Slavery disguised as freedom, control so subtle that the victims themselves would defend it. What seemed like science fiction in Huxley's time is now our daily reality. But to understand this completely, we need to compare his vision with another famous prophecy about the future. And this comparison will shock you. You've probably heard of George Orwell and his book 1984, published in 1949. Orwell imagined a future where the government controlled people through constant fear, oppressive surveillance, and severe punishment. In Orwell's world, Big Brother was always watching you through mandatory screens installed in every home. Any word against the regime, any forbidden thought, any misstep led to prison, torture, or death. It was a world of absolute terror, where obedience came from desperation and fear of being discovered. People in Orwell's world obeyed because they were afraid. They followed the rules because the alternative was pain, public humiliation, and disappearance. Control was exercised through brute force, explicit propaganda, and constant threat. It was a brutal system, but at least the victims knew they were being oppressed. Huxley saw something completely different and much more dangerous. In his dystopian world, nobody needed to be watched because nobody wanted to rebel. People were controlled through constant pleasure, infinite entertainment, and immediate satisfaction of all physical and emotional desires. There were no prisons because nobody wanted to escape the artificial paradise. There was no censorship because nobody wanted to read serious things or think deeply. In Huxley's world, people didn't obey out of fear. They obeyed out of pleasure. They voluntarily surrendered their freedom in exchange for guaranteed fun. And the most frightening part, they thought they were free. For decades, the world lived in fear of Orwell's prophecy. We feared surveillance cameras on the streets, authoritarian governments censoring newspapers, and political police knocking on our doors. Movies, books, and political discussions always focused on the danger of control by force. Meanwhile, Huxley's vision was silently materializing without resistance, because nobody realized they were losing their freedom. Today, we carry devices that track us 24 hours a day, recording every place we visit, every person we talk to, everything we buy. But we do this voluntarily because these same devices give us pleasure, convenience, and entertainment. We surrender our most intimate data to algorithms that know more about our desires than our own family, not because we're forced to, but because we receive personalized content, relevant ads, and customized experiences in return. The difference is simple but profound. Orwell warned us about a world where books would be banned by the government. Huxley predicted a world where nobody would want to read books anymore because there would be so many other easier and more immediate forms of pleasure. Orwell feared that the truth would be hidden from us. Huxley feared that the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevant information. Guess which prophecy came true? You have access to all the books in the world on your phone, but you prefer watching short videos. You can learn any skill for free online, but you spend hours watching other people live their lives. Nobody prohibits you from thinking deeply, but you've lost the ability to maintain attention on anything for more than a few minutes. In Huxley's book, there was a substance called soma. It was presented as the perfect drug. It eliminated any emotional pain, any anxiety, any psychological discomfort, but without the physical side effects of traditional drugs. When someone felt sad, stressed, confused, or began to question the system, they simply took soma and returned to being happy and obedient. It was distributed free by the government as part of every citizen's basic rights. In the novel, there was even an official slogan: "A gram is better than a dam." Whenever a conflict arose, an emotional difficulty, an existential crisis, the solution was to take soma and forget the problem. People became dependent on this chemical escape, unable to deal with any natural discomfort of human life. Soma seemed like pure science fiction in 1932, an impossible invention that could never exist in the real world. But today, it not only exists, but is in your pocket right now. Your smartphone is the Soma of the 21st century, and it works exactly as Huxley described. Every time you feel anxious, bored, sad, lonely, or emotionally uncomfortable, what's your first reflex? You instinctively grab your phone. In seconds, a personalized dose of content, funny videos, photos of beautiful people, shocking news, addictive games, calms your mind and eliminates any restlessness. Just like Soma, your phone keeps you satisfied enough not to question why your life seems so empty or why you feel so disconnected from the real world. Social media, games, videos, online shopping, dating apps, all of this works like small doses of digital Soma. Every notification that arrives is a promise of instant relief for any emotional discomfort you might be feeling. And just like in Huxley's book, the more you use it, the more you need to use it to feel the same effect. Your tolerance increases, your natural ability to deal with emotions decreases, and you become increasingly dependent on the next dose. The difference is that in the novel, at least people knew they were taking a drug. They consciously chose Soma to escape reality. We don't even realize we're addicted. We believe we're just relaxing, staying informed, or connecting with friends. We don't recognize that we're systematically fleeing from any moment of silence, reflection, or emotional discomfort that could lead us to personal growth. And the most frightening part, just like in Huxley's world, this dependence didn't happen by accident. Behind every app on your phone exists an army of neuroscientists, behavioral psychologists, experienced designers, and specialized engineers working 24 hours a day with a single objective: make you spend more time on the screen. They're not trying to inform, entertain, or connect you. They're trying to addict you in the most efficient way possible. It's important to understand that technology itself is a neutral tool, like a hammer that can build a house or break a window. The problem isn't in the existence of smartphones or the internet, but in the unconscious use of these tools, and, more critically, in the intentions behind many modern digital platforms. These professionals study your brain like a scientist studies a laboratory rat, testing billions of combinations of colors, sounds, timing, and rewards to discover exactly what keeps you addicted. They know that certain colors grab your attention more, that certain sounds make you look at the screen instinctively, that certain reward sequences create stronger dependence than others. This isn't a conspiracy theory or poetic exaggeration. These are documented scientific techniques based on decades of research on operant conditioning, neuroplasticity, and behavioral addiction. There are entire laboratories dedicated to studying how to make digital products more engaging, a pretty word for addictive. They know your sleep patterns better than you do. They know when you're most emotionally vulnerable. They can predict with frightening accuracy when you'll feel lonely, anxious, or bored. And in each of these moments of vulnerability, they have a notification, a video, a promotion, or a message waiting for you. The result is a behavioral manipulation system more sophisticated than any drug ever created by humanity. Cocaine and heroin affect only a few specific receptors in your brain. The algorithms that control your feed affect your entire brain, your sleep patterns, your attention capacity, your emotions, your relationships, and even your perception of reality. They know exactly what type of content triggers your dopamine, what images make you stop scrolling through your feed, what keywords awaken your curiosity or indignation, what type of background music makes you watch a video to the end. They test thousands of variations to discover which combination keeps you glued to the screen longer. You think you're choosing what to watch, what to buy, who to relate to, but you're actually being guided by an artificial intelligence system that knows your behavioral patterns better than you know yourself. And this is just the beginning of your manipulation, because there's a fundamental difference between real pleasure and the pleasure being sold to you. There's a crucial difference between the pleasure you feel when you achieve something important in real life and the artificial pleasure you receive through a screen. And understanding this difference is fundamental to your liberation. because it explains why you can have access to more entertainment than a medieval king and still feel miserable. Real pleasure, authentic pleasure, has specific characteristics that evolved over millions of years to help us grow, learn, and genuinely connect with other human beings. Generally, real pleasure involves some initial effort, some challenge that needs to be overcome. Learning to play a musical instrument is difficult and frustrating at first, but the satisfaction of being able to play a complete song is infinitely deeper and more lasting than watching someone play on your phone. Authentic pleasure also creates vivid and lasting memories that enrich your personal identity. You clearly remember the first time you managed to cook a complex dish without help, the first time you completed a long run, the first really deep conversation you had with someone special, the first time you created something with your own hands. These memories become part of who you are, increase your self-confidence, and motivate you to seek bigger challenges. But try to remember some specific video you watched last week. Can you? Try to remember some post you liked yesterday. Try to remember exactly what you did in the last 3 hours on your phone. Most of the time we spend consuming artificial pleasure simply disappears from our memory as if it had never happened. Furthermore, real pleasure connects you with other people in a genuine and reciprocal way. When you develop a real skill, you naturally find other people who share that interest. You can teach beginners, learn from more experienced people, collaborate on projects, create bonds based on real shared experiences. These relationships are bidirectional. You contribute as much as you receive. Compare this to your digital connections. You follow hundreds or thousands of people, but how many actually know you? How many would care if you disappeared tomorrow? How many would look for you if you needed real help? Most of your online connections are unidirectional. You consume their lives, but they don't even know you exist. Finally, authentic pleasure increases your personal capacity cumulatively. Every book you read prepares you to understand more complex books. Every kilometer you run makes the next one easier. Every skill you develop gives you a foundation to learn related skills. Real pleasure transforms you into a more capable, more interesting, more useful person to your community. Artificial pleasure does the opposite. The more you consume, the less capable you become of being satisfied with normal stimuli. Every hour watching 15-second videos decreases your ability to read an entire book. Every meal ordered through an app reduces your ability to cook. Every superficial virtual relationship makes it harder to build real intimacy. Manufactured pleasure is like refined sugar. It gives a quick energy spike, followed by an even bigger crash. Each dose of artificial pleasure makes you less capable of feeling satisfaction with real achievements, real relationships, real experiences. This is why after hours on your phone you feel emptier, more anxious, and more disconnected than before. The tragedy is that the more artificial pleasure you consume, the less pleasure you feel with real things in life. Talking with friends without having your phone on the table becomes uncomfortable. Reading a book seems impossible after getting used to fragmented information. Having sex without pornography seems boring. Cooking your own food seems like too much work. Your ability to feel genuine satisfaction has been systematically sabotaged. And now we reach the most important point: how this manipulation is specifically destroying 3 fundamental areas of your life, turning you into a slave without you realizing it. The first pillar of your modern slavery is in how you relate to other people. And here, we need to be brutally honest about what's happening to human relationships in our society. In the past, building a deep relationship with someone required time, patience, real vulnerability, and the willingness to grow together with another person. You got to know someone gradually, through long conversations, shared experiences, conflicts resolved together. You learn to deal with the other person's imperfections, to forgive mistakes, to support during difficulties. It was a slow and sometimes painful process, but it created bonds that could last decades. This type of relationship required you to develop real emotional skills: empathy, patience, communication, conflict resolution, commitment. You had to learn to be interesting without being perfect, to love someone even when they irritated you, to build intimacy through genuine presence and exclusive attention. Today, relationships have become disposable products in an infinite supermarket of options. Dating apps have turned people into catalogs where you can swipe to the next option in seconds, based only on physical appearance and a few biography sentences. Relationships are evaluated like products in an online store. If it's not perfect immediately, if it requires too much effort, if it has any defect, you simply trade it for a newer model. The result is an entire generation that no longer knows how to build real intimacy. They know how to have sex, but don't know how to make love. They know how to send funny messages, but don't know how to have deep conversations. They know how to present themselves attractively online, but don't know how to be vulnerable and authentic in person. But the problem goes far beyond romantic dating. Even long-term relationships, marriages, and old friendships are being affected by this consumerist mentality. How many times have you been physically present with someone you love, but mentally you were checking notifications on your phone? How many important conversations were interrupted because a message seemed more interesting? How many times did you prefer watching strangers' lives on the internet instead of building real memories with real people? Your ability to be truly present with another person, to give total attention, to listen without judging, to share genuine emotions, is being systematically destroyed. And without this ability, all your relationships become superficial, unsatisfying, and disposable. The most perverse part is that this destruction of intimacy is sold as freedom and empowerment. You can meet thousands of people online. You can have infinite partner options. You can avoid any emotional discomfort by simply blocking someone or swiping to the next one. You can maintain relationships only through messages, without ever having to deal with the complexity of being physically present with another human being. But freedom without depth is just disguised loneliness. And this brings us to the second pillar of your slavery. The second way you're being controlled is through the illusion that you are what you buy. Your identity has been hijacked by consumption, and you didn't even notice when it happened. If I asked you to describe yourself, how many of your words would be about products, brands, or things you own? Think honestly about how you present yourself to other people. You talk about the clothes you wear, the places you frequent, the products you consume, the experiences you buy. Your personality has become a carefully curated collection of purchasing decisions. You're no longer a person with unique tastes. You're a demographic profile with predictable consumption patterns. This didn't happen by accident or by your conscious choice. There's an entire multi-billion-dollar industry dedicated to making you confuse products with personal identity. Every company you see has invested millions of dollars in psychologists, neuroscientists, and marketing specialists to create a brand personality that you can wear by buying their products. You don't just buy sneakers, you buy the identity of an athletic and determined person. You don't just buy expensive coffee, you buy the identity of a sophisticated person with good taste. You don't just buy an electronic gadget, you buy the identity of a modern and connected person. Every purchase is an attempt to transform yourself into the person you'd like to be without having to do the real work of transforming yourself. The result is an endless race after the next purchase that will finally complete you. That outfit that will make you feel confident. That online course that will change your life. That experience that will give you purpose. That product that will solve all your problems. But the satisfaction never lasts, because you're not building who you are. You're buying who you should be. The most painful truth is that the more you try to build your identity through consumption, the emptier that identity becomes. You become a walking billboard for companies that don't even know your name, spending money you don't have to impress people who don't care about you, buying things you don't need to feel like someone you're not. And the worst part, this search for identity through consumption is designed to never fully satisfy you. If you were really satisfied with a purchase, you'd stop buying. So every product is designed to give you enough satisfaction to keep buying, but never enough for you to stop wanting more. You've become a hamster on an infinite consumption wheel, running faster and faster after a carrot that always stays a little further away. And while you run after the next purchase that will complete you, your real life, your real skills, your real relationships, your real personal growth remains abandoned. The third pillar of your prison is perhaps the most subtle and most dangerous. You've been transformed into a spectator of your own life. Instead of living real experiences, you consume virtual experiences. Instead of creating things with your own hands, you only consume other people's creations. Instead of solving your own problems and building your own story, you watch other people solve fictional problems on screens. Think honestly about how many hours of your day you spend watching other people live. Influencers traveling to exotic places you'll never visit. Professional gamers achieving epic victories in worlds that don't exist. Fictional characters finding true love in stories that never happened. People cooking dishes you'll never try to make. Meanwhile, your own life happens on autopilot. You wake up, go to work doing tasks that don't inspire you, come home physically and mentally exhausted, turn on a screen to relax, and repeat the same cycle the next day. Your real life has become just the interval between sessions of passive entertainment consumption. Entertainment has always existed in humanity, but it's never been so immersive, personalized, and addictive. In the past, you watched a play and then talked about it with friends on the way out. You read a book and then debated the ideas with other people. Entertainment was a starting point for social interaction and personal reflection. Today, you can spend 12 straight hours on a series, alone in the dark, without breaks for reflection or conversation. You can play a game for weeks without leaving the house, without interacting with any real human being. You can watch infinite videos without ever reaching the end, without ever having to process what you just saw. The problem isn't having fun or having leisure moments. The problem is when entertainment completely replaces real life, when you prefer watching someone play soccer to playing soccer, when you prefer seeing someone cook to learning to cook, when you prefer following influencers' relationships to building your own relationship, when you prefer living through fictional characters to creating your own story. And so we arrive at the concept that explains all of this. You've become a spectator in a society of the spectacle. This term was created by French philosopher Guy Debord in the 1960s to describe exactly what's happening now. In the society of the spectacle, real life is replaced by representations of life. You don't live, you watch life happen. Debord realized that when everything becomes spectacle to be passively consumed, people gradually stop actively participating in the world. They're content to watch, consume, react, and comment, but never actually act or create. It's easier to like a post about social injustice than to actually do something concrete to change the world. It's more comfortable to watch adventure documentaries than to plan and live your own adventures. It's safer to watch other people take risks in relationships than to risk yourself. It's less work to see someone learn a new skill than to dedicate years to developing your own skill. It's more convenient to consume content about personal growth than to do the hard and slow work of actually growing as a person. The result is a society of emotionally passive people who know more about celebrities' lives than about their neighbors' lives, who get more emotional about fictional characters than about real people, who invest more emotional energy in virtual worlds than in the world where their bodies actually exist. The cruel irony is that the more spectacle you consume, the less spectacular your own life becomes. You become the audience of your own existence, always waiting for something interesting to happen, but never being the one who makes it happen. Always waiting for the next episode, the next video, the next season, but never creating the next chapters of your own story. Now we reach the heart of all this manipulation. Your attention has literally become the most valuable product in the world. And understanding this is fundamental to your liberation. You need to understand a truth that may shock you. You are not the customer of social media, video sites, or most of the free apps on your phone. You are the product being sold. Your ability to focus, to pay attention, to remain present. This is exactly what's being marketed to other companies. Think about it this way. In the past, to sell something to you, a company needed to buy advertising space on television, radio, or newspapers. They had limited access to your attention only during commercial breaks or on advertising pages, and they never knew if you were actually paying attention or if you had left the room during the commercial. Today, through your phone, these companies have direct access to your brain, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They know exactly when you're awake, when you're bored, when you're sad, when you're procrastinating at work. They know where you are, who you're with, what you just bought, what type of content makes you most emotionally vulnerable. And in each of these moments of vulnerability, they can insert personalized messages directly into your mind. They're no longer generic commercials interrupting your programming. They're messages created specifically for you, based on thousands of data points about your behavior, inserted at the exact moment when you're most susceptible to influence. Your attention is literally bought and sold as a commodity in financial markets. Companies pay billions to have a few seconds of your focus, and the more fragmented your attention becomes, the less you can concentrate on anything for long, the more valuable it becomes to those who know how to capture it. It's a perverse market where your ability to think deeply, to concentrate on important projects, to maintain long and meaningful conversations is being systematically destroyed to generate profit for companies you'll never meet. The result is an entire generation suffering from artificial attention deficit. It's not that you were born without the ability to focus. It's not that you have some neurological problem. It's that this ability has been deliberately sabotaged, fragmented, and commercialized to benefit interests that have nothing to do with your well-being. Every time you try to read an entire book and feel your mind wandering to your phone, every time you try to have a deep conversation and get distracted by a notification, every time you try to work on something important and get lost in random videos, know that this isn't your failure. It's the result of years of carefully planned conditioning. But here's the good news. Recognizing the problem is the first step to solving it. And there are clear signs you can identify to know if you're trapped in this matrix of artificial pleasure. If you've made it this far in this video, you're already demonstrating something that has become rare in our society: the ability to maintain focused attention on something for more than a few minutes. This means there's still hope, that your ability to concentrate hasn't been completely destroyed. But before showing you how to free yourself completely, you need to be brutally honest about the signs that you're trapped. You pick up your phone automatically, without even thinking consciously about it. This is perhaps the most revealing sign. Your hand goes to your pocket or bag by reflex whenever you feel any slight emotional discomfort, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, or even just a few seconds of silence. You check social media compulsively, even knowing rationally that there's nothing new since the last time you looked 5 minutes ago. You might be in the middle of an important conversation, and without realizing it, pick up your phone to just take a quick look. What? You might be working on something that requires concentration, and automatically get distracted by notifications that aren't even urgent. This automatic behavior is the clearest sign that your nervous system has been hijacked. Another concerning sign: you have extreme difficulty being alone with your own thoughts. Silence makes you uncomfortable or even anxious. You constantly need music, podcasts, videos, or any external stimulus to feel good. The idea of spending an hour without any entertainment, just present with what's happening in your mind, terrifies you. This is particularly revealing because the ability to be comfortable with yourself, in silence, has always been considered a sign of emotional maturity and mental health. If you can't tolerate your own company without distractions, how can you expect other people to want your company? You might also notice that you constantly postpone important decisions, significant projects, or necessary conversations to watch just one more episode, or just one more video. You know perfectly well that feeling of wanting to stop consuming entertainment, but not being able to. It's as if something bigger than your conscious will control your fingers, your clicks, your choices. You might be consciously tired of watching things, even bored with what you're seeing, but still unable to turn off the screen and do something productive. This is behavioral addiction at the most basic level, continuing a behavior even when it no longer gives you pleasure and even when you know it's harming you. Perhaps the most painful, you feel more emotionally connected to fictional characters, influencers, or celebrities than to real people in your life. You invest significant emotional energy in dramas of people who don't even know you exist, while your real relationships, family, close friends, romantic partners, receive scraps of your attention. You might know intimate details about the lives of strangers on the internet, but can't remember the last deep conversation you had with someone who actually loves you. You might get emotional about the ending of a series, but can't get emotional about real achievements of the people around you. Finally, you've lost the ability to tolerate slowness, gradual process, or any activity that doesn't give immediate gratification. Learning a new skill seems impossible if it doesn't give visible results in a few days. Reading a book seems like torture if it's not exciting from the first page. Talking to someone without having your phone on the table makes you impatient. Your mind has been conditioned to expect constant and immediate rewards. Any activity that requires patience, persistence, or tolerance for initial frustration seems unbearable. This prevents you from developing any real skill, building any deep relationship, or creating anything meaningful in your life. If you recognized yourself in several of these patterns, you're living on emotional autopilot, being controlled by external systems instead of making conscious choices about your own life. But recognizing this isn't cause for despair or self-blame. It's the first step to regaining control of your existence. The good news is that you can completely reverse this process. Your brain has something called neuroplasticity, which means it can create new connections and abandon old patterns at any age. The first step is a strategic digital detox, but not in the way you imagine or that most people try to do. It's not about throwing your phone in the trash, cancelling all social media, and becoming a digital hermit. This extreme approach rarely works long-term because it ignores the reality that we live in a connected society and that technology, used consciously, can be a powerful tool for personal growth, creation, and genuine connection. It's about regaining conscious and intentional control over your digital choices, instead of automatically reacting to every stimulus that appears on your screen. It's about transforming yourself from a passive consumer into an active and discerning user of technology. Start with small reconquests of mental territory. Choose a specific period of the day. It could be in the morning when you wake up, or in the hour before sleeping, where you stay completely disconnected. No phone, no television, no computer, no electronic stimulus, just you and your own thoughts. It might seem simple, but for most people this is initially terrifying. You'll feel anxiety, restlessness, and almost physical urgency to grab your phone. This is normal and is exactly proof that you needed to do this exercise. Persist. Let the anxiety exist without trying to eliminate it immediately with distraction. During this time of silence, don't try to force positive thoughts or complex meditations. Simply observe what comes up in your mind. You might discover important worries you were avoiding, emotions you were suppressing, creative ideas that didn't have space to appear amidst the constant noise. The next step involves doing a brutal audit of your digital consumption. Go through all your social media and remove everything that doesn't add real value to your life. Stop following people who only make you feel inadequate, envious, or irritated. Stop consuming content that makes you anxious, angry, or depressed without any constructive purpose. This might mean unfollowing 80% or 90% of the accounts you currently follow. Your mind is like a garden. If you keep planting toxic seeds every day, you can't expect healthy flowers to grow. Be ruthlessly selective about what kind of information you allow into your brain. Gradually replace passive habits with active habits. Instead of watching someone cook, dedicate time to learning to cook something new. Instead of seeing someone play music, learn an instrument, even if it's just a few basic chords. Instead of watching someone travel, plan and execute your own exploration, even if it's just a different park in your city. The secret here isn't to eliminate all entertainment from your life, but to create a balance where you're the protagonist as much as the spectator. For every hour you would spend passively consuming, invest at least 15 minutes actively creating, building, or learning something. Reconquer your deep attention capacity through deliberate practice. Choose an activity that requires sustained concentration. It could be reading physical books, solving puzzles, learning a new skill, or even just having long conversations without distractions. Start with short periods you can maintain, maybe 10 or 15 minutes of total focus. When your mind tries to flee to distractions, gently bring it back without judging yourself. Gradually increase the time as your attention muscle strengthens. And this brings us to the next crucial step: learning to differentiate pleasure that strengthens you from pleasure that weakens you. Authentic pleasure has specific characteristics that you can learn to recognize and seek intentionally. Real pleasure usually involves some initial effort, some challenge that needs to be overcome. It doesn't come ready and chewed up. You need to invest time, energy, and sometimes even initial frustration to conquer it. Think about the difference between watching someone play a beautiful song and you yourself learning to play that song. The first gives you immediate and passive pleasure. The second requires months of practice, sore fingers, constant mistakes, moments of frustration. But when you finally manage to play the complete song, the satisfaction is infinitely deeper and more lasting. Authentic pleasure also creates vivid memories that integrate into your personal identity. You clearly remember the first time you managed to cook a complex dish, the first long run you completed, the first really intimate conversation you had with someone special. These memories become part of the story of who you are, increase your self-confidence, and motivate you to seek bigger challenges. Compare this to the passive entertainment you consume. Can you specifically remember something you watched last week? Can you remember how you felt afterward? Most artificial pleasure simply evaporates from your memory, leaving only a vague feeling of wasted time. Real pleasure connects you with other people in a genuine and mutually enriching way. When you develop a true skill, you naturally find other people who share this passion. You can teach each other, collaborate on projects, create together. These relationships are based on giving and receiving, on mutual growth. Authentic pleasure increases your personal capacity cumulatively. Every book you read increases your ability to understand more complex books. Every kilometer you run makes the next one easier. Every skill you develop gives you a foundation to learn related skills. Real pleasure progressively transforms you into a more capable, more interesting, more useful person to your community. The practical exercise is simple. Before starting any pleasurable activity, honestly ask yourself, will this strengthen or weaken me? Will I remember this in a month? Will I be a more capable person afterward? Does this genuinely connect me with other human beings? For every hour you would spend consuming passive entertainment, try to invest at least 15 minutes in creating, building, learning, or actively connecting. It could be drawing, writing, cooking, exercising, calling a friend, learning something new online. Any activity where you're the protagonist, not just the spectator. But even doing all this alone, you'll still encounter significant difficulties. Social pressure, ingrained habits, and the very structure of society will work against you. And this brings us to the most powerful antidote against modern slavery. Humans are profoundly social animals. We evolved over millions of years in small tribes where everyone knew each other personally, cared for one another, and depended on each other to survive. Your brain still functions based on this ancestral reality, but today you live essentially isolated, surrounded by millions of strangers, trying to find meaning and connection through virtual interactions with people you'll never meet. This disconnection isn't just uncomfortable, it makes you extremely vulnerable to manipulation. When you don't have a real community that cares about your well-being, it becomes much easier to be exploited by systems that pretend to care only to extract value from you. Real community is the most powerful antidote against modern manipulation because it offers you something no algorithm can simulate. Genuine acceptance based on who you really are, not on what you consume, produce, or appear to be. When you're part of a true community, you have real responsibilities to real people, relationships that require reciprocity, purpose that goes beyond personal satisfaction. Start small and be strategic. Look for a regular, in-person activity where you'll meet the same people repeatedly over months. It could be a walking group, an in-person class, volunteer work, a sports practice, a study group, a religious or spiritual activity, even a shared hobby. The important thing is that it's something that happens in the physical world, with regularity and consistency. Virtual or sporadic meetings don't create the type of bond you need. You need people who will notice if you don't show up, who will care about your well-being, who will challenge you to grow. The magic happens when you stop being just a consumer of experiences and become an active contributor to a community. When you teach something to someone, help solve another person's real problem, or simply listen with full attention to someone who needs to vent, you rediscover how powerful and satisfying it is to be genuinely useful. This generates a type of satisfaction that no entertainment can replicate, because it's based on real reciprocity, real impact on the lives of real people you know and care about. Real community also naturally protects you from manipulation, because other people can notice when you're being deluded, when you're making destructive decisions, or when you're isolating yourself in addictive behaviors. True friends alert you when you're spending too much money, when you're addicted to something harmful, when you're sabotaging your own goals. Algorithms and commercial systems will never do this. They profit exactly from your weaknesses, your insecurities, your addictions. A real community has interest in your long-term growth and well-being. And this brings us to the last and most important point: how you, by becoming a more awake and conscious person, can inspire other people around you to free themselves too. When you start living more consciously and intentionally, something interesting and powerful happens automatically. You become a living example of an alternative, not because you're preaching, criticizing others, or trying to convert anyone, but because your own energy and presence change in a perceptible way. You become more present during conversations, able to give full attention without getting distracted by your phone. You become more creative and interesting because you're actively creating things instead of just consuming. You become calmer and more centered because you're not constantly bombarded by external stimuli. You become more confident because you're developing real skills and achieving genuine goals. People around you begin to notice these changes, even unconsciously. They perceive that you seem more satisfied with life, more focused on your goals, more genuine in your relationships. They start asking questions. How do you manage to concentrate so long on one thing? Why do you seem so content, even without having so much stuff? How do you have energy for so many interesting activities? Your answer doesn't need to be a sermon about the dangers of technology or a criticism of their lifestyle. It can simply be, I decided to be more intentional about how I use my time and energy. Or, I discovered that doing real things makes me more satisfied than just watching other people do things. Awakening is naturally contagious, but only when it's genuine and not forced. When you've really transformed your life for the better, when you're genuinely happier and more fulfilled, other people naturally feel inspired to consider similar changes. You don't need to convince, argue, or persuade anyone. Your own transformation is the most powerful argument. Remember, you don't need to awaken the entire world, convert your entire family, or transform all your friends. Real social change happens one person at a time, one relationship at a time, one small community at a time. If you can genuinely inspire one or two people close to you, they will eventually inspire other people, who will inspire others, creating waves of change that spread naturally. The liberating truth is that you already have everything you need to start this transformation today. You have a brain capable of making conscious choices instead of automatically reacting. You have a body that can move, create real things, and physically connect with other human beings. You have the possibility of building genuine relationships based on reciprocity and mutual growth. The only thing that was missing was clearly understanding how you were being manipulated and why. Now you understand. Now you can choose differently. The question is no longer whether you'll be able to free yourself from this matrix of artificial pleasure, but when you'll decide to take the first step. The journey back to real freedom doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process of reconquering control over your attention, your choices, your relationships, and your time. But every step you take in this direction immediately makes your life richer, more meaningful, and more yours. You're not just escaping a golden prison. You're actively building a life that's truly worth living, based on real growth, genuine relationships, and meaningful contributions to the world around you. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to the channel and continue with me for the next video.